Hello everyone, Ace Attorney here, and I'm about, Ace, what? Hello everyone, the NCS here, and I'm about to do my top 100 greatest or most personal favorite Ace Attorney moments. This includes basically all the Ace Attorney games, including Investigations 1 and 2, as well as Great Ace Attorney 1 and 2. Does not include any moments from the Layton crossover, as I still haven't played that yet. Should be getting around to that fairly soon someday. Heard it's really good. Before I get into the list proper here, I just need to get a few little intro things out of the way. Number one is obviously spoilers for all the games, except for Layton, obviously. I don't think I even really need to say that, but it kinda, it's a necessary evil. So I didn't write a script for this at all. All I have is just the 100 moments in a text file on my computer, because I thought maybe it would just feel more conversational that way. And so because of that, there's not going to be a whole lot of fancy video editing or anything. It's just I'll show the moments as they become relevant, but that's going to be about it. There's not going to be any water hand drawings or any of that on here. So this is not technically a fake sequelitis anyway, but beside the point. Don't really have a sponsor. I don't really do that kind of thing anyway. If you want to help, the best way you can do it is by leaving a like on the video, and perhaps a comment as well, even if just to say the toilet. As far as what's on the list, obviously, it's all kind of subjective, really. I tried to leave out things like recurring gags, so stuff like the stepladder debate, or Edgeworth not being able to get a witness to say their name. Those are funny moments, but they happen so often that you can't really pin it down to just one, and it wouldn't really be fair to do that. On the other hand, I wouldn't want to go through and show all of them, so it's kind of like, well, what do you do there? So there's not a lot of that. I think maybe there's one or two that technically do fall into that set, but I'm not going to look over the whole list right now. It's whatever, but anyway. There's also a lot of times where there's two moments that are really close together, or really closely related. Like, you'll find out that someone is dead. That would be a huge moment. And then you find out later that they're alive. That's also a huge moment. But I wouldn't want that to take up 2 spots on the list. But if it's only going to take up 1 spot, then which one do you use? If you can only use one moment. It's things like that I had to think about when I was making this list. But I think I pretty much got it down to where I want it. I mean, the order could probably use a little tweaking here and there, but then again, it's like from one day to the next, you never know how you're going to feel about certain moments. And this list could be changing all the time in my head. So there's no way I could pin it down. This is just where they happen to fall on this specific day, November 21st, 2023. So, whatever, I think we're just going to go ahead and bust out the honorable mentions here. These are in no particular order, but the first one is breaking old bags 4 psyche locks in one shot. Yeah, that was pretty good. Gatto throws the coffee at Phoenix. Also really good, but it's a little too close to another moment that actually is on the list. Kazuma's dead. Yeah, did I mention there were spoilers? I'm pretty sure I did. Cammy Meal blows bubbles. This one was in the top 100 for a little bit just because of how weird it is. I have a tendency to remember really small things like that. You'd be talking to a witness for, some odd hours in a game, and all of a sudden they just bust out this animation that you're not expecting. It's almost like I don't believe what I'm looking at, it's weird. The step-ladder debate, that still is in the honorable mentions, even though I talked about that earlier, that I don't really count that as a moment because it's more of a recurring gag. Same thing with Edgeworth. Can't get the witness to say their name. Jeff Masters sings and the guard does the jazz hands, that one's pretty good. Banana Glove, that's another one that's it's really stupid, and eventually I had to push it out because there were too many other good ones. Damon Gant's long, slow, painful pauses, / Pikachu. Shoot, what was that guy's name again? It was Lady something. He's a witness in the first Great Ace Attorney game, and when he's on the witness stand, he looks like he's riding an imaginary horse. And the last one I have in honorable mentions is Phoenix to April. I think it's high time you went shopping for a better excuse. Oh, excuse is not on sale today? Well, that's too bad. And there you have it. So I guess we're just gonna jump in top 100 here. So my only advice from here going in is get your favorite snack, get your favorite drink, get cozy, and get ready, because this could take a while. Anyway, number 100. Manfred von Karma steps out of the candy castle. What the hell was he doing in there? Probably using the bathroom in one of the candy toilets. I mean, I don't know. Just the absolute contrast between a guy like him in a candy castle You could not put two more diametrically opposing things, and just the sight of it, I don't know, there's something about it. Yeah, like, I was projecting if I talked about each of these for 1 minute, it would be an hour and 40 minutes. But that one, well, that was pretty fast, I guess. I don't know. I mean, there's not much else to really say about that, but yeah, that's why it's number 100, though. There you go. Number 99, in Case 1-5, which is infamous for making you watch that video like a half a dozen times, Edgeworth makes this remark. He says, "Having seen a questionable video at best, we are not in the best of moods." I just think that line is so hilarious. There has never been any reason for anyone to use the plural of the word mood in the world, except for that line. You know, and couple that with the fact that he's never in a good mood anyway, so, like, what do you expect? Number 98, man, I'm looking at this already thinking I should have put this one higher. Maya is not worthless. At the end of Case 1-4, and this, once again, is one of those that kind of ties into a different moment where she protects a crucial piece of evidence, even though Von Karma's tasing her with like 600 volts of electricity or whatever it is. So at the end of that case, Maya's feeling bad that she couldn't help more, you know, in the case itself, even though she helps a lot. You know, and then Phoenix presents her that evidence, you know, and tells her, you protected this evidence, you're not worthless, you know, and you go do what you gotta do, but just don't go with the mindset that you didn't help here because you actually did. And it's important for her to know that going forward, you know. So she has that long-ass 2-hour train ride ahead of her to sit there and think about it. You don't want her leaving on that, so it's so good that he was able to finally catch up to her and just tell her what she needed to hear. You know, and that's important, I feel. And then when she says goodbye and she turns all anime and gets on the train, it's just nice. It's a nice way to end the game. At least until Case 1-5 was added, but still. Case 1-5 is good too, I don't hate it. Number 97, Soren proposes again. Who in the world cares about that case? I mean, I do, and it's in the top 100, I guess. It did get there, because it is a nice moment. A lot of times I go back and I think about a case, and I think it wasn't really that great. But then I actually go and I watch some footage of it, and I kind of start getting into it, and then I realize, damn, this is actually pretty good. And that happened with this case. You know, especially with the way he, like, folds the message up into a paper airplane and it says, I think he says it out loud. He says, "Will you marry me?" Then she says yes, and they stand side by side. The two chocobo butts. And, you know, it's just really nice. And I guess to be fair, like, this is the last moment on the timeline of Ace Attorney as we know it. You know, it seemed appropriate. There had to be at least one moment of those two. Besides, we got 96 to go. Plenty of space for all the good ones. Speaking of 96, we have Tricking Furio. Furio Tigre, antagonist of Case 3-3. And, yeah, there's a lot to unpack with his character, which I'm not going to get into. But basically the moment is, when you get towards the end of the case, it's one of those moments where you basically have to get the witness to say something that they're not supposed to know, something that they only would know if they were there at the scene of the crime, and that's what happens here. So this character, who's like a total badass, who's been impersonating you, who's trying to date the daughter of some mafia overlord or something, I don't even remember, really. I always wish they did more with Viola, but beside the point. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you trick him, and because he almost gets away, like, you almost lose the case until you do that. And then finally, he slips up, he talks about the bottle, he says what color it is, and you're like, okay. But there's no way you could have known that unless you were there. And then he's just like, ah, and then he does this scream that takes up like 100 text boxes, and everybody hides from him, and he's just like, crap. It was very gratifying to take him down. Number 95, Dog on Cravat. You might start to find, if you're not somebody who really knows me that well, and you're just coming in from somewhere, I am kind of a big fan of Spirit of Justice. It might be my favorite game in the entire series. I totally understand why people don't like it, but I don't know, I have a lot of nice feelings associated with that game, so. And it's always fun when Edgeworth shows up in those later games, even though he's not like the central focus. He always shows up, and it's always crazy when he does. Number 94, Athena posing as the statue. Okay, first Dual Destinies, first burp. This is one of those that makes me wonder how much context do I really want to specify about this, because if you're watching this as a Phoenix Wright fan or whatever, then you already know, you know, but if you're watching this as someone who's like, thinking about getting into the series and you want to see what the best is that they have to offer. For people like that, I would maybe want to offer some context so you understand like why the character is doing what they're doing, and then it makes more sense, as to why the moment is funny or important or whatever. And in this case, they're just trying to recreate something from the crime scene, and so Athena is posing with a cloth over her in the shape of a statue. And I'm sitting here doing it right now, actually pointing, and then she makes that little crack about how, oh, you're not into this, are you? It's just, the whole thing is just so funny. And it's like right at the end of the case, too, so you're right on the verge of winning, so you feel good when you're doing it because this is going to be the thing that does it. It's great. Number 93, Rafa sticking her head in sideways. This one is a bit of an indulgence for me, and again, here we go with the spirit of justice here. She doesn't actually stick her head in sideways in the game. That was like a little video editing trick I did. But Rafa doesn't go into the room because she's not allowed to, I think. So Rafa's talking to him from outside the room, and you just picture her sticking her head out, like, through the door to try to talk to him, and so she sticks her head in sideways, and I thought that whole moment was really funny. And between that and the music that plays in there, which is really intense, by the way, I love that song. I love it and I hate it at the same time because it makes me uncomfortable. But yeah, I just like that moment. I don't know. It's like, how do you really define what a moment is, though? Because some moments are just like a single line, and then other ones is like an entire section, and some of them may span across like the entirety of 10 minutes or something. Number 92, Nayuda reveals tattoo on hand. Let me just offer you this much assurance. I think this is his only appearance on the list. He may be tangentially related to some other moments, but here, this moment when he takes off the handage or whatever it is, and he points it toward the screen, and he's like, "A dragon never yields." I loved that moment. I know he's not the best prosecutor, and I completely agree, but that moment was pretty freaking good. And the fact that there hasn't been a follow-up game just makes it hurt all the more that you're like 5 minutes from the end of the game when this happens. But still, just the fact that you've been squabbling with him all this time and him sitting there telling you to let it go and move on, to finally have him on your side to take the queen bitch down, is just good times. The only thing missing was for him to throw his beads at her, but maybe he actually does do that. I don't remember. Oh well, anyway. Number 91. Drivers seek contradiction in 2-2. That's what I have written there. Like, I didn't rename these or anything. That's how unprepared I am, folks, let me tell you. Yeah, I love Case 2-2, and it seems like a lot of people do. For a long time, I thought it was underrated, but I don't think it ever actually was. I think people always knew that this case was magical. It introduces a lot of things, but this moment specifically, when you point out that the car was British, and so when she said she got out of the passenger side, it actually means she got out of the other side of the car, and then that's how you find out that she's been posing as her sister all this time, who actually did commit the murder. Well, her sister was the one who died, who didn't commit the murder, and she pretended to be her sister so people wouldn't think that she committed the murder, and she would think that the sister who did commit the murder died in the crash, and it's something like that. Anyway, it's a fun moment, though. It's a fun little piece of the puzzle to put together to kind of figure out, that's what happened. Yeah, I always thought that Mimi was kind of an interesting antagonist because she's sympathetic. You get what she went through and everything, and you get that her boss was like a total asshole. It was good stuff. I liked her. She was stupid, but I liked her. Number 90, taking footprint samples with Emma in 4-2. I think the footage I got for this is not actually the footprint section, but basically this is the first time you've met Emma since, like, Case 1-5. You haven't seen her in Justice for All or Trials and Tribulations. And then she shows up here and she's all grown up and she's depressed and her theme song sucks and she's not exactly working the job that she hopes she would be working at this point. But still, you're out in the park, you're dusting for fingerprints. It's just a nice time, you're getting to know her again, getting her reintroduced back into the picture so that she can go on to not be in Dual Destinies, and then to be there again for like 5 minutes in the investigations games, and then to finally reprise her role in Spirit of Justice and be all happy-go-lucky in that game, but beside the point. Just this moment it's a moment, it's not anything specific, it's not anything that anybody says. It's just being there with her and doing the science stuff and investigating, figure out what's going on. Just kind of getting to know, what you're in for with her, which is Yeah, which is not to say that she's the most enjoyable character in Apollo Justice. I don't know, I'm probably a little biased, and if you know, you know. Number 89, Vera Mission Drawings. I mean, Apollo Justice is kind of a middle-of-the-road game for me. Because the thing is that when it has good moments, it has really good moments. I wouldn't even call Vera Mission one of the more memorable characters, but I do enjoy the thought of her communicating in some way, because she has a hard time, like, making facial gestures, I guess, is that what you call it? So she does these little drawings to indicate when she's happy, or when she's sad, or when she's confused, or when she's talking about the stamp, or whatever. But yeah, but every time I see those drawings, it kind of brings back fond memories of just getting lost in that game. And I feel like even though the fourth case in Apollo Justice doesn't do the greatest job of following up on the promise that the first case set up in that game, it's one of those cases you kind of just get lost in. And the Vera Mission drawings always remind me of that, just how absorbed I felt into the story at that point. Number 88, Shamsphere Wakes Up. Oh boy. I think that might actually be the most scared that I've gotten from an Ace Attorney game. And you're investigating the scene, and he's just laying there the whole time. And you're investigating for like a half hour with him just laying there. Suddenly he just sits up in the chair, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And just, oh god, I'll never forget how that made me feel. Number 87, The Distant of Phoenix Wright. I'm just gonna let Lucahjin take point on this one, since I'm recording this on her birthday. I think I've said that 3 times now. Take it away, Luca.
Yo! Walkie-talkie be broke for real, Mr. Lawyer's freestyle got no appeal. Broke before the Puma on the scene, broke before Wright could ever dream. Legit goof during cleaning time, but Bill sucking lawyers be spitting lies. Dad Walkie, you don't listen to me, K? Kill the captain. Yo, you so cray. Bro, I am too old for this shit.
Yeah, that's all that needs to be said about that. Number 86, Sheena is Callisto U. Who the hell is Sheena again? This is one of very few Investigations 1 moments that we're going to see on here, because, let's face it, folks, Investigations 1 is the worst Ace Attorney game. I agree with the majority on that one. What happens again with this? I don't even remember, jeez. Callisto U, I believe it's in Case 4, I believe she's also the culprit. And there's a really big moment where she pulls a gun on you at some point in that case. But she also has this tick where she laughs a lot. And it's a very unusual laugh, the way she looks when she does it. She has like the huge triangle mouth, you know. And then later on, when she's like the last thing on your mind, you see this other girl who's playing as assistant to Agent Lang, who is, if you don't mind my saying, probably one of the top 2 characters in Investigations 1. And she just starts busting out laughing, and that's how you find out she is Callisto U. I really wish I remembered more about that, but I kind of don't, because you kind of don't care about a lot of stuff in that game. They have these characters like Dead Man, and yeah, the sooner we move on from that, the better. So let's go. Number 85, Cross-Eyed Puzzle. Oh yeah, here we go. So is this the first one from the first Great Ace Attorney? I think it might be. I like this moment a lot because I actually did the puzzle. I was playing on a big screen TV. I actually stood there and I tried crossing my eyes so that the images overlapped. And I actually saw on the TV while playing the game where I needed to look to get the evidence for the next part. And that just blew my mind that they actually made that work. But what's even funnier about it, though, is when Iris and Susanoo are explaining how to do the puzzle, and they are both standing there with their eyes crossed at you. It's just freaking hilarious, man. Number 84, I might catch a little flack for this one, but Grossberg's hemorrhoids never lie. Yeah. We'll just leave it at that. Number 83, Trucy sleeping on Edgeworth on the plane. Absolutely precious. Just that feeling of knowing that someone is comfortable enough with you to fall asleep on your shoulder. I mean, that's a nice feeling, you know? I don't know. Number 82, Kristoff, It's Over. Yeah, so this would be the breakdown in Apollo Justice that you've been pushing for what feels like forever. There's a lot going on there that you could get into, but being that this is a top 100 list, I don't want to tell the whole story here and now. It would take literally 10 minutes. But at the end of the day, Kristoff was his brother, and if you can't trust your own brother, that's not easy to deal with something like that. It's one of those moments where it's hard to do, but it's necessary. and he had to do it, and you get to see a unique sprite when he does do it. Number 81. Oh crap, I guess I lied. There is another Nayuta moment here. Nayuta throws beads, but Blackwell cuts them down. Blackwell is just a complete badass, and when he laughs and slaps his hand on the thing, it just gives me life. It really does. Number 80. Gumshoe saving us from D. Vasquez and the goons. Yeah, this was case 1-3 from the first game. I don't remember what you were doing in there. Probably gathering evidence, and she caught you and brought the mafia in or whatever. And then Gumshoe was like, hey everybody, clear out of here, just like he does in the Thriller video. Or, not Thriller, but the other one, shoot, Smooth Criminal, yeah. Number 79. Questioning the judge in Investigations 1, I'll tell you. One of the few good things we got out of Investigations 1, aside from the 2 whole other moments that are on this list from that game. Maybe there's 3, I don't really remember. I'm not counting or something here. I mean, I don't really think I need to explain what's cool about this one. It's you who's asking him the questions this time. It's you who's getting him to explain himself all this time. And even better still, he's trying to explain what was going on while he was in the bathroom. If that's not a moment that needs to be on my list, then I don't know what is. Seriously. Number 78, Trust in Me's Death Revelation. Okay, so this is one of those where it was going to be 2 different moments, and I had to compress them into one. The first moment being, obviously, when Maya channels him, because that is just straight up weird as hell. But the second moment was when his wife finally sends him on his way with the red Magatama and forces him out of Maya's body. It's actually through him, I think, where you start to realize the fallibility of the whole seance thing that Rafa does. But like when she sends him away and he smiles at her as he's fading away, that's just, I thought that moment was so sweet. And then she started crying afterwards. There was something about her design that reminds me of somebody that I know. I don't know if it's like Rachel Ticotin in Man on Fire or something, I don't know. But yeah, there's just, everybody knows somebody who looks like her, you know? She's just got one of those kind of faces or something, I don't know. Number 77, I love this one. Penny busts out her cards. This is one of those really obscure moments that nobody ever talks about. I love moments, I think I mentioned this before, I love moments where you're talking to a character for upwards of a half an hour. You think you got them pinned down. You think you know who they are, right? You think, okay, this girl Penny, she's good at her job. She gets shit done. She's shy. She's a little bit aloof. And then all of a sudden, when you need something from her, for the fetch quest that goes on in that case, all of a sudden, she just busts out and says, oh my god, I need that card, and she flashes her collection at you, and she suddenly, like, gets this really serious look on her face. You know, I feel like a lot of the moments that I put on here, I put them very specifically because they were moments that I would remember for the rest of my life, and that's one of those kind of moments. Number 76, Dogen. The first time you talk to this guy, it's like, oh man. Like, at this point in the game, everything's been kind of lighthearted. I mean, sure, there's the whole assassination from the first case and all that, but for the most part, the atmosphere has been pretty happy and sunshiny. And, like, even in the prison, you got animals running around, you got Frank Saw it and everything. Just everything's kind of funny, and there's a lot of levity. And then suddenly you meet Dogen for the first time, and you realize this game's about to break bad. And, Dogen is just a cool-ass character, and just meeting him alone, I feel like, is a moment that really stands out. It's worth noting that this moment originally was supposed to be Dogen versus the Killer, because they kind of face off toward the end of the 5th case, but ultimately, that face-off didn't really lead to anything other than Dogen offering some kind of lesson to Jake Marsh about don't do what I did, you know, don't hold revenge in your heart and all that stuff. But I thought that meeting Dogen was actually more memorable than that moment, so that's why I just said Dogen. So, there you go. Number 75, Swiss cake rolls. I mean, in the game they're just called Swiss rolls, but I mean, let's be honest here, they're actually Swiss cake rolls. So this is where Gumshoe first meets Kay for the first time. He only has $5 to his name. She only has $1. And the Swiss rolls cost $6 from the vending machine. So they agree to pool their money and get Swiss rolls and share them between each other. And it's just a really nice moment where two really likable characters get to know each other for the first time. Because this is also a flashback case, so you're also seeing Gumshoe, like, fresh on the job. He's still got the white trench coat. And it's just nice to see him not so jaded from all the years he spent doing this work, you know? But I still remember when I was playing the game, I just could not stop talking about those Swiss cake rolls. I think I even had a Swiss cake rolls counter at some point. My good lord, it came up so often. It was pretty ridiculous, but also very funny, because I do love me some Swiss cake rolls. So, you know, go get you some too. Maybe you're eating some right now while you're watching this video. Let me know. Number 74. You did it, didn't you? Yes. Number 73. Mia gets Victor Kudo to talk. Oh god, this moment. Yeah.
Look at the booth.
Like, it's a bit of an uncomfortable situation, because at first you're taking Maya out there in the waitress uniform to try to... you know, and then he's like, oh, go away, you're too young, and then thank God he says that, I guess. Not that that's exactly setting the bar very high or something. But then she channels Mia, and it's a wonder she fits into the thing, but somehow she does. Number 72, the Mason system. Say what you want about it, and I totally get why people don't like it. It doesn't make a lot of sense, it's very improbable. But it was actually a lot of fun to play, and you got to see a lot of pieces, just little slice of life pieces, you know, from the lives of the magicians, and the life of Kristoff, and of young Trucy. Oh my god. I was kind of weird about the young Trucy thing, because it felt like they were trying to say, oh, here's the next Pearl, you know, like, oh, Pearl did so well, now let's do it with Trucy. And, you know, and even though she's supposed to be 8, she kind of looks like she's 5. It's hard to believe that even at that age, she was that much of a pro, but, you know, sometimes you just gotta have plot swords. You know how they say plot armor? Well, Trucy has plot swords. We'll get back to those later. But I actually thought the Mason system was pretty fun. It's like a little puzzle you just have to put together. And if you know the right order to do it, it actually makes some more sense than it would normally. I just remember it was pretty challenging, and Phoenix Wright games aren't exactly known for being challenging. So it was kind of nice to see something where I kind of didn't know what to do. Then again, sometimes the most frustrating part about these games is knowing what to do, or trying to figure out what to do, so maybe not. But then again, that's why it's not in the top 50, so there you go. Still fascinating, though. Number 71, accusing the judge of having Max's bust. This one kind of speaks for itself. It's an optional piece of dialogue, but if you get it, you won't regret it. Put it that way. Number 70, Pain. Not Winston Pain, I'm talking about Spirit of Justice Pain. I mean, and not that kind of pain either, because some people think that game is pretty painful. The first time I played Spirit of Justice was actually at E3, and it's actually the only time that I've been spoiled on a Phoenix Wright game before playing it, aside from when I watched the breakdowns video that time. That was pretty stupid. But yeah, there's something about playing a game right there on the E3 floor that just feels different, you know, it hits different. But when I saw what the concept of the divination seance and what it was going to be, I found it really fascinating. Because the divination seance shows the last few moments of a person's life, and so it always ends with pain, and like everybody hopes that they don't die that way. And so I kept thinking throughout the game that there was going to be at least one death where it wasn't pain, it would be something more like peace. But that never happened, and I'm kind of surprised it didn't. Maybe if they bring back the divination seance for Ace Attorney 7, then maybe. But yeah, every single time that word popped up on the screen, I felt it. Number 69, Edgeworth is saddled with unnecessary feelings. Nice. Number 68, Alchie cutting off his hair. It's kind of poignant, you know, because you don't normally really sympathize with those characters. Those Winston Payne knockoffs, you know, those butt munches. But this guy, it's like you're going through the whole case, and he's got this top knot or whatever on his head. But then at the end of the case, when he loses, and he cuts it off, he does this little haiku leading up to it. I actually didn't notice this in my Let's Play of the game, but almost all the other characters have a unique praying sprite, or praying, pose for when this happens, and it's the only time they do it in the entire game. So it's actually pretty funny. I don't know what else to say about this one, so moving on. Number 67, Yuri Cosmos Breakdown. Is this the first breakdown on the list? Because I think it might be. This one is just funny because it's like a Looney Tunes cartoon where he makes the Yuri-shaped hole in the wall on his way out. And its segues are already funny to begin with, but between that and this, it was just too good to pass up. I couldn't resist. Number 66, Phoenix calls Edgeworth Daddy. We had to have a good one for 69. We had to have a good one for Execute Order 66. So there you go. Number 65, Adrian and Lana Smiles. Okay, alright, let me get something out of the way here. I wrestled with this one more than probably any other one on the list, because at some point, for some reason, I decided that only one of them could be here. Eventually, as you can see, what I decided was to include both of them, because I feel like they're both pretty important characters and pretty good moments for both of them. And I didn't want to put one above the other because I felt like they were both equally special for their own unique reasons. They're both women being accused of murder, which is not exactly an enviable position to be in, but they each kind of had their own unique disadvantages and advantages. Like Lana, I feel like she was colder to you over the course of the game, but she also has the association to Emma Skye, which brings her up a few notches. But then Adrian has, on top of being accused of murder, she also has mental problems. The whole codependency thing, which that alone I kind of always wasn't sure about. Isn't it healthy to depend on your friends and not to just want to do everything and go at it alone? But maybe that's the whole point, is that what she had wasn't an illness. I guess one other thing that kind of ruined Lana for me was I was watching a Patty stream and he was playing the game blind, but he was also playing the old version where the art is kind of looks a little awkward, the pixely art, And so when she smiled at the end of it, he made fun of her smile by putting his teeth together and putting his mouth in a circle, and every time I see it now, all I can see is him making that face, and so it's just kind of messed it up for me, but whatever. I also think Lana's outfit is cuter, but beside the point. Anyway, number 64, Frank Saw It throws his toupee. I would not want that in my face, that's all I know. Number 63, let's go let her whip us, Mr. Nick. Okay, so this is the case where Franzi gets shot, and Phoenix goes to visit her at one point, and he brings flowers. And I almost put that moment on here. I guess the thing is, that moment and this moment kind of go together. There's just this hilarious dichotomy of Pearl wanting to be selfless and let Franzi give Franzi something to enjoy, where Phoenix might be more like, oh, I don't know, I wouldn't mind a little whippage. Anyway, never mind. Well, speaking of whips, number 62, Franzi whips Sebastian. Dear God. Man, that felt good to see that happen. And I know Sebastian is a very sympathetic character. You find that out in the final case, obviously. But up until this point in the game, Sebastian has just been a complete and utter and total jackass. And when Franzi shows up, the first thing that probably crosses your mind when they talk about who's going to be the lead prosecutor, you're like, oh, please let it be Sebastian. Please let it be Sebastian. Because you know, the moment that he shows up, she's just going to lay into him. And she does pretty much exactly that. Number 61, Are You High? Yeah, not a lot of Larry Butts on this list, I'm noticing. I don't even mind Larry Butts that much. Oh, speaking of Larry Butts, look at this. Number 60, Breaking Larry's Cyclops in 3-5. 5 more appear. Edgeworth. No! You work so hard to get those Cyclops off of him, get him to tell you what's going on, and then he comes up with 5 more. I think that's the only time that ever happens in the entire franchise. That you break off some Cyclops and then the same character, literally 2 or 3 minutes later, pops up with 5 more. And fortunately, you don't have to break those. You take him to court and figure the rest out, but still, it's really funny when it happens, though. Especially because Edgeworth is new to the Cyclops thing, and he calls them Psycho-Locks. In fact, Psycho-Locks was also supposed to be its own moment, but I had to kind of merge it with this one, so they weren't taking up 2 spots on the list. Number 59, Inga's full name. Do I even dare try to read this? Inga Karkul, how could this name be any longer or more pompous than it already is, Karine. I mean, this is just the writers having fun at this point, and you can't blame them for it. Some would say they definitely overdid it with the puns in Spirit of Justice, and I would not be prepared to argue against that point at all. They did. They went crazy. Friggin' peace labbing and a standing. Still, I don't think any of those is nearly as unforgivable as Dead Man. Oh my god, suddenly all this Larry. Look at this. Number 58. Pearl's Psyche Locks can't cover her face. Larry takes care of her. This is another one of those where it's kind of like 2-in-1. Usually when you get 5 Psyche Locks on a character, they show up in like an X pattern. But with Pearl's, they couldn't do that because it would cover her face, and it's so cute they have to put the 5th one up on top so her Psyche Locks look more like a mountain. Which is actually so much the better because she's going to be the hardest one to break in that case. And so it makes sense. It's be like climbing a mountain to get to the truth with her. But then even better when the truth turns out to be gravy, you know. So that whole case is just so freaking good. Number 57, the Gravity Device Dance of Deduction. I'm noticing we're not seeing much of Great Ace Attorney on this list so far. I hope more of it's in the top 50. Shit, dude, you made the list. You think I would remember. Yeah, all the dances of deduction were fantastic, but there was something about the spectacle of this one, and just all the different poses and everything, and Susado's just standing in the middle of it all, like she doesn't know what the hell's going on. Stuff's floating in the air, and there's a freaking shoe print onto the side of a balloon up by the ceiling, and it's like, how does this even make any sense? Like, how could this possibly make any sense? But somehow you make sense of it at some point, and it's really good. But yeah, that was one of my favorite dance of deductions. There is one that is better, and if you know, you know, so let's move on. Number 56, Edgeworth catch! Phoenix tosses the phone to Edgeworth, and the developers actually take the time to put the phone on the screen and kind of spin it around as he throws it over to him. It's kind of one of those blink and you miss it moments, too. It's very easy to miss. Number 55, Dual Destinies Triple Objection. I feel like this one probably should have been higher, actually, looking at it now, but hey. You find out who the culprit really is, and it turns out to be somebody that you thought you trusted. And so you really need all 3 of those fingers to be pointing to get that guy to go down. And they definitely don't hold back on that. Like, I already thought the camera angles for those final shots were really cool. But seeing all 3 of them do it in a row, and then the camera pulls back and all 3 of them are pointing at the same time, that is just a moment right there. That's right up there with Phoenix and Mia pointing in case 3-5, which I actually don't think is on the list, strangely enough. Huh. Every time I've ever watched somebody play this game, they had the same reaction to him that I did. They totally trusted him. So, like, when you first make that cut on his face, I have this thing about cuts on skin or holes in skin. I know there's, like, a name for that. I forget what it is, but, it gets under my skin. It kind of makes my chest hurt when I see it. Number 54, John Marsh is Courtney's son. Who is John Marsh again? Yeah, maybe not the most memorable character, John Marsh, you know. Especially, well, he must be somewhat memorable because I watched My Hero Academia recently, and this character basically right here is John Marsh. But then again, I think John Marsh is adopted because he's 13 and his mom is 26, so yeah. But that moment when you have to pull that information out of her and you could see the distress on her face, her son has been kidnapped and the kidnapper is asking for an acquittal for someone who is clearly guilty. But Justine is another one of those characters where you spend several hours with her and she's basically one note the entire time up until this one point where she just completely does a heel turn, and you see her in a vulnerable state for the first time. And this is after she's, like, changed her mind in Case 4 and turned on Blaze Vest and all that. So you're actually sympathizing with her already, even before this happens. But then when it does happen, it's like, okay, I definitely gotta help this woman. I probably am a little biased because I did manage to call this one before it happened, but still, it's an intense conversation, and you know, you just want to do the right thing, so. Number 53, Iris and Runo checking out Van Zeek's office in this is Great Ace Attorney, actually, case 2-3. The moment specifically that really hits is when they're checking out the caskets, and she thinks there might be dead bodies in there, and she does like this slow motion, brings her hands up to her face in shock. Kind of like how Petey Piranha slowly looks up at you in Sunshine as you realize the roof is about to collapse, you know? That's always funny when characters do that. But that entire section with them just roasting him for the stuff in his office, it's really funny. Number 52, Fried Mushroom Heads. Ha 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 ha. trying to keep it chill here. I only call this fried mushroom heads because it looks like this one frame from some Koopa Kid comics that I drew as a kid. But this guy is ridiculous. I kind of feel like it came out of left field for me personally because I didn't catch any of the foreshadowing that was leading up to it. I don't know how much there actually was. I know that there was a moment in Case 2 where he says something to the effect of, when he's talking about Knightley, he says that we're the only friends either of us have had since childhood. And then towards the end, 18 years later, he's like, that guy's not my friend. Because something happened where, like, Knightley kidnapped him or tied him up so he wouldn't be able to be there for his dad at the dessert contest. There is actually another moment that addresses that that's coming up later. We'll get to that when we get there. But yeah, this guy's nuts. And his theme song is great. And the fact that he can summon animals to make an armrest, it's just funny as hell. Yeah, Money the Monkey, boy, he just loves hanging around killers, doesn't he? Number 51, just barely not making it to the top 50 on account of it being an optional dialogue piece. Bonnie's life choices. It's one of those that's just really easy to miss because you're in the heat of the moment. It's the end of the trial. You're trying to get the right answer. You're on a time crunch. Actually, I don't think there is a timer on those, but either way, it's a hilarious answer. It's just a prime example of why sometimes you want to choose the wrong answer just to see what it says, you know? You see some real gold that way. Number 50, Reveal of Patient K. So up to this point, in both the first and second investigation games, K has kind of been mostly invincible, and just out of the blue, they throw this in your face. And it's almost inconceivable that Edgeworth and Gumshoe don't recognize her right away, but I guess they really had to kind of draw it out a little bit. Still, the first time you see this, and when the music comes in, and it's like her theme song, but it's way slowed down, and it's all sad and in a minor key, it just breaks your heart. And you think, you know, God, what I would do if I could figure out who did this. It's just further exacerbated by the entire opening cutscene in which it appears that she's been thrown off the side of a building. And then later you find out this building is 50 stories high. How the heck could she have possibly survived that? Did she hit a tree on the way down? Was there a helicopter? Or was it, you go through all these different scenarios in your head, just imagining what was happening. And the only real clue you have is when the nurse tells you, like, oh yeah, I found her stumbling around. So, like, she was stumbling around. Like, it just makes you wonder, you know, and so you're playing all the worst case scenarios off in your head. It's just that you don't realize how much you can really assume too much just from seeing something like that, so yeah. But still, definitely a heartbreaker. Number 49, Gumshoe gets a raise. This has been a long time coming. It's all through the entire trilogy, both trilogies really, and the Investigations games. It's become something of a gag that when Gumshoe screws up a little bit, Edgeworth will say something to the effect of, well, this is coming right out of your salary report, or something to that effect. And then finally, in what turns out to be Gumshoe's latest canonical appearance in the timeline, Edgeworth says this little dinger right here about you can look forward to your next salary assessment. You know, and I guess Gumshoe might be a little quick to assume that he's out of the instant noodle lifestyle, because for all we know, Edgeworth just gave him a raise of like 20 cents an hour or something like that, but still though, like, I'm willing to bet that it was more than that. A lot more. And Gumshoe deserves it. Number 48, Clavier's guitar bursting into flames. Just... oh, it gets me every time. Number 47, Edgeworth gives therapy to Sebastian. This one might be a little too close to another moment that's later on the list, which you probably can guess what it is just based on that, but honestly, it's a really nice moment, because up until now, most of Edgeworth's deduction and logic chess sections have had to do with him bringing the truth out of somebody, or pressing somebody for the truth, and usually it was somebody who was up to no good, somebody who was either a criminal, or an accomplice, or a witness, and usually an uncooperative witness. Looking at you, old bag. And then this one last time, he gets to do it to Sebastian. but he has to go completely the opposite way with it, where he's trying to gently bring information out and get him to just talk about what's going on in his head. In spite of it being confrontational, it's still such a nice moment. It's crazy how they managed to make that work. You know, you don't go in here and play Contra to do surgery on somebody, but that's basically what this is. This is Contra surgery. And this is where Sebastian finally starts to become a sympathetic character after literal dozens of hours being a dillweed. So yeah, it's a long time coming, but it feels well earned at the same time. Number 46, Cold Killer X. Dahlia has to either take the pills or admit she poisoned them. This is another one of those great situations like Furio Tigre, where you have the culprit cornered in a situation where they can either admit their guilt or they can prove that they're innocent by doing a very specific thing. And in this case, it's Dahlia taking the cold pills, you know, to prove that she didn't poison them. But as it turns out, she won't do it. And you know she's not going to do it because she knows that the pills actually are poisoned. And it's just a beautiful way of putting someone in between a rock and a hard place and saying, here, you know, it's up to you now. What's even sweeter is you get to make the same proposition to the prosecutor, who's all head over heels for Dahlia, but then he won't do it either because even he knows that she's guilty. And that's just icing on the cake right there. Number 45, Roger Ratings Breakdown. I had to put this one somewhere on here. I don't really like putting breakdowns on the list because it just feels too predictable. You know, like, obviously the breakdowns are the highlight of the game, so you don't want to put too many of them on there, but there's some that you just can't omit, and this is one of them. Yeah, just all the different visual effects and the stuff that appears inside his cape. That's all, like, references to what happened in the case. My memory's a little hazy on the details of all that, but yeah, it's a good breakdown, though. Definitely one of the best. Number 44. I was hoping to come up with a question while I was objecting, Your Honor. I didn't. Number 43, Metal Jesus gets people to sing. How can you put this asshole over I didn't? Like, you played 6 of these games now, a combined total of probably 200 or 300 hours, and all this time you've been listening to the same sound of dialogue typing itself across the screen. Now all of a sudden, the dialogue is in tune with the music that he's playing. Phoenix sings along, and the judge sings along, and the prosecutor sings along. And for just that one beautiful moment, everybody's in harmony. It's like that Garth Brooks song about the guys at war, but it's Christmas Eve and they all stop to sing Christmas carols together. I'm not trying to compare this to that or anything, but still, I think it's a wonderful moment. And Metal Jesus is funny anyway. Number 42, the Queen of England / Strongheart Breakdown. The whole Queen of England bit kind of hits a little different given recent events, but yeah. It's pretty epic, though, when you actually get the Queen in on it. And so Strongheart has to realize, you know, that he can't just keep doing his thing in the privacy where nobody's gonna see it. You know, because sometimes, you know, people, like my dad sometimes was like that. He would get really angry. But then when we had company over, he would just be, like, happy as a peacock. But yeah, that's why it kind of hits home for me, seeing Strongheart get his comeuppance when he realizes, oh no, somebody else has been listening in. Somebody else is going to be a witness to all my bad behavior. I can't turn it off now. I gotta take responsibility for it now. And boy does he ever. The entire scales go tipping down on him. Those scales that have been like the bane of your existence for 2 whole games, they come crashing down on his ass. And it just feels good, man. It feels so good. So there you go. There's 2 breakdowns out of the last 4 entries. How about that? This next one is not quite a breakdown unless you count a bridge burning as the bridge breaking down. Number 41, Phoenix runs across burning bridge. You know this one, and you gotta love it. Case 3-5, I said it before. People say it's great for a reason. It's because it is. And this is in the opening of the case. The first maybe 1 or 2 hours this happens. And it's already just demonstrating not only how Phoenix ended up in the hospital, which you find out in the last case, but also, like, it just shows how much he really cares about Maya, that he would do that. Anyway, number 40, Sebastian standing up to his dad. We were just talking about that earlier, about Edgeworth giving him the therapy and all. These 2 are pretty close together. I probably could have moved this one up a bit. I've seen Sebastian finally just come into his own. A lot of times a character will transform, or they'll turn good, or they'll get good, right there at the end of the game when there's like 1 or 2 hours left. And Sebastian at least gets maybe 4 or 5 hours to be good. But then even within that 4 or 5 hours, he only really gets 1 hour of, if that, of screen time to actually demonstrate. So I feel like that doesn't have as much potency as maybe it could. Plus, you already wrecked his dad's shit in Case 4, so him standing up to his dad is just the finishing blow that needed to be done. Blaze DeBest is like one of those villains, though, where even after you've beaten him, it doesn't feel like you have. It doesn't feel like you've convinced him that he's wrong. And I guess that's the case with a lot of villains, really. But usually they at least see what they did wrong. Enoch Drebber is a perfect example of that, or Mimi Miney. Mad On Guard, maybe not so much. But somebody like, Acro appeared to be sorry for what he did. But Blaze never came across that way. I mean, that moment wasn't about Blaze, though. It was about Sebastian, and I guess it always should have been, so... Anyway, moving on. We gotta get this moving here. I tell you, man, it's getting long. Number 39, Phoenix drinking coffee at the end of 3-5. So this one is the reason why Gatto throwing the coffee at him wasn't on the list, because I felt like these two were too close together. But I thought the Phoenix drinking the coffee with him at the end was actually more memorable, more impactful for me personally. Number one, because it's funny. The only thing missing in that scene is for Phoenix to put on a big red mask himself. It's like one of those Photoshop pictures, where people are trying to make fun of the game or something. It looks that way when you see it at first. It looks fake. And I guess that's part of why I find it so funny. I don't know. In the end, though, it is really a nice moment, though, of reconciliation between these two. Number 38, Magnus McGilded, not guilty. This one is fascinating for reasons that I don't even dare start talking about. You really have to play the case to get the full effect of it. Like, this guy's basically a philanthropist. Everybody loves him. He donates to all the good causes. He gets caught in the middle of this case. You're fighting for him, and you totally believe him. He on the witness stand, he's very amicable. He gets along with everybody. And he also looks like Willy Wonka. So then, they bring the entire crime scene into the courtroom, which you never get to see that. And you point out this one little thing that's inconsistent with the case up to this point. And he just goes off. And it's only then that you realize that you just exonerated a guilty man. And of course, obviously, what happens later is what happens later. It is the biggest moment in the first game, as far as I'm concerned. I played the first Great Ace Attorney on my own time, so I don't have a playthrough of it, and there wouldn't be any point now because it wouldn't be a genuine reaction. But when I saw it, I still remember where I was sitting on the couch and what I was eating. Number 37. You're not going to believe I put this over that, but I should have put that one higher. Number 37 is K Says Bull. I love this moment because of how unexpectedly jarring it is for her character in that case. We've already talked about Patient K and how different she is from normal K, but even normal K would not say this, and this feels very savage for her. What she's actually saying is that she remembers something about a doll that looks like a bull or something like that. But in the moment when she first says it, just for that briefest of moments, you think she's actually calling out Blaze DeBest, who's arguably the strongest character, the character with the most leverage in the case at this point in time. And this little frail girl who can barely remember her own name, that basically can't remember her own name, just says bull. And I love it. I love it. Alright, okay, so for number 36, for some reason, I have Phoenix saying, I can assure you it is quite based. Number 35, Franzi and 2-3, who said anything about my father? I don't know if that's her exact words. 2-3 is a pretty divisive case. I tend to lean towards not so much disliking it as just thinking it doesn't really measure up to the others. The thing of it is that a lot of times in these cases, you think that the investigation is going to be like the most boring part. But every now and then, just randomly in the middle of an investigation, it'll drop something on you. A scene will happen, you'll find out something about somebody. And this happens with Franzi in 2-3. You're talking to her outside the building or whatever. She's talking about how she's going to beat you and everything like that. you start asking her, like, yeah, I know you're trying to get back at me because of what I did to your father. And she responds to you and says, who said anything about my father? And this might just be another case of, well, I only like this moment because it makes me feel good about myself, because it confirms something that I had already suspected. Franzie's main goal in that game, personally, she was trying to surpass Edgeworth, so if she could beat me, who is the guy who could beat Edgeworth, then she would have surpassed Edgeworth. That was kind of how she was thinking about it. And I felt like that was a really strong moment to kind of give that case something for you to chew on, besides the bubble gum that comprises the rest of it. Does that make any sense? I don't know. While we're on the subject of Franzie, number 34, Franzie saves the day. So, in the case following that, 2-4, I don't need to remind you of this, but this is the case where Matt Onguard is your client, and you know that he's guilty, but you have to get him a not guilty, or else the assassin that he hired will kill Maya. And it's just then that Franzie comes busting in the door, her frickin' theme song plays. It's the kind of moment that just makes you raise your fist and say yes, just yes. And we haven't really had a lot of those on this list at this point, I feel, so this is a good one to get us into the top 33 here. Basically, the top third we're going here. Alright then. Number 33. Iris acknowledges Holmes as her dad. By Iris, I mean Great Ace Attorney Iris here. I don't think this one even really needs all that much explaining. It's part of the ending for Great Ace Attorney to resolve. And probably, aside from the crossing of swords between Asogi and Ryunosuke, I would say this is the heart of the game right here. The whole thing with Kazuma is great and all, but there's also the fact that you thought he was dead across literally 60% of the two games combined. Whereas the Iris thing, she's been looking for her dad, and the whole Hound of the Baskerville situation, that's like carrying over from the end of the first game. That's going all through this game. Pretty much for the final 3 cases of the game, she's trying to figure it out, and so are you. You're trying to figure out who is her real dad, and eventually you do find out. And at that point, Iris is just like, well, Holmes is the one who's been there all this time. He's the one that's been taking care of me and feeding me and allowing me to do my work and maybe, arguing with me here and there or whatever happened. But even more so than that is Holmes' response back to her. You can tell that he's deeply moved by what she says. Like, I think he even says it himself, like, this is the best news I've heard in 6 years or something like that. It's just a wonderful moment, really heartwarming, a great way to go out. Number 32, the other Iris, Iris Faye, I guess Iris Faye, confesses her feelings for Phoenix. Or just confesses in general about her lie. So this is another one where it's kind of hard to explain. Phoenix is in love with Dahlia, who is like this totally evil person. Iris is Dahlia's twin sister. The real Dahlia can't hang out with Phoenix because the police are onto her. So her sister has to go instead, which if she's so indistinguishable, I don't know why the police wouldn't go after her too, but... So he thinks that Dahlia is like this really gentle, wonderful person, because that's who Iris is. So when it comes time for him, do the Dahlia case, he kind of doesn't want to, and when he sees Iris, like in the newspaper clipping, he thinks, oh, that's Dahlia. So I gotta go figure this out. What happened here? Why did you try to poison me? But eventually, finally, Iris gets a chance to tell Phoenix, that was me all this time. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I fell in love with you, and Phoenix is like, oh, thank God. So all this time, this girl that I truly loved was in there. But yeah, she's taking this huge chance with confessing to him that she lied to him about who she was, that she was indeed a different person. But then he comes back and tells her, it doesn't matter, I always believed in you, the real you. He's so relieved to know that the person he did fall in love with was not the killer. It's nice to know that she was a separate person, and that person still exists, somewhere out there. I don't know. I don't need to move on, and we're never going to get done with this. Okay, so, number 31. Mo sings Fresh Prince. Don't think we need too much explanation on that one. Number 30. Phoenix attempting to kill time by making small talk with the killer, only for the judge to think Phoenix is trying to order a hit on him. I love how much of the humor in this series comes from the judge being kind of a dumbass. Number 29, Prosecutor Blackwell rage quits during the Hugo Connor cross-examination. Dual Destinies might be a mixed bag, but I don't think I'd get much pushback for saying that Simon Blackwell is beast mode. Number 28, The Return of Edgeworth in Case 2-4. Yeah, man, this is just straight up the ultimate Uno reverse card. I mean, Franzi, you know, it's like, she's been such a dick to you up to this point. And speaking of being a dick, she's just fired Dick Gumshoe. So, like, if ever there were a time that you hated this character, it would be right here. And so, and of course, this would be the time that Edgeworth just comes in and straight up clocks her. I mean, not really, but like with words, you know what I mean? And just tells her, like, hey, you know, like, get the frick out of here. You ain't even supposed to be here. What the hell? I mean, I guess she was at that point. I don't know. I guess one of the other cool things about it is that the game's been teasing that Edgeworth might be dead all this time. And for the most part, like, I didn't believe it. I think most people probably didn't. And then the game finally confirms it at the end of Case 2-3, you know, that he's not dead. So when you get to this case, you know it's only a matter of time before he shows up. It's just a matter of when he does it. But they could not have picked a more perfect time for him to show up. Like, a lot of games would probably try to write this as some big, huge hero moment where, like, the hero of the day comes in to save the day. And, like, here, you're getting help from, basically, your enemy. So it's more of like an enemy of my enemy is my friend situation, which is actually really interesting. So, number 27. Oh, God. Was that last one not painful enough for you? Well, let me tell you, this one's gonna hurt. Number 27. Dirk is dead. This is, by far, one of the most shocking reveals in any of the games, really. So Dirk is Apollo's dad, but all through the game Apollo's been hanging out with him and getting to know him. He went away when Apollo was really little, so he really never got a chance to get to know his dad. And now he's finally getting to know him, only to find out that the whole time he was dead, and it was just his spirit being channeled by Maya. So it was him. It was Dirk. It was Dirk's consciousness that was talking to him. So it's not like it was all fake or something. He did get to spend time with him. But the knowledge of just knowing that he was dead the whole time is understandably devastating to him. It hurts to find that out, but what can you do, you know? So, there's another moment where we talk about this more later, so I'll just talk about it when we get there. Number 26. This should not be this low. I'm going to be saying that about all these now. Edgeworth giving up his badge. This kind of goes with the Patient K reveal, I guess, a little bit, but again, like, I'm not a big Edgeworth K shipper or any of that, but it's really obvious in Investigations 2 that he cares for her, and he cares for her deeply. And the fact that he throws down his badge just so that he's able to defend her is just a tremendous show of character for him and for his relationship to Kay. Especially given that Kay doesn't even, like, in the moment, doesn't know who she is, because she has amnesia in that moment. And so, him giving up his badge is a sacrifice that she probably can't even conceive of in the moment. So there was nothing in it for him as far as their relationship was concerned. For all he knew, she would never get her memory back. So the fact that he did this for her is just even more selfless. The entire game up to this point has been teasing this whole thing of, like, you know, Edgeworth's dad was a defense attorney, so maybe he'll be a defense attorney now. And he already did play a defense attorney for a little bit of trials and tribulations, so you know he knows how to do it. And you know he knows how to defend someone. But here, it's like, he's not only defending, he's literally putting the badge down. Because if he doesn't, then he's just gonna lose it to the PIC anyway. Like, it's a good thing Blaze turned out to be a killer, because if he hadn't, I mean, who knows what would have happened. But at that point, nobody knew Blaze was a killer. So again, Edgeworth's sacrifice means all the more, because he wasn't expecting to ever get that thing back. There was no way. So, good things happen to good people. At least we like to hope. But yeah, good on you, Edgeworth. You made a good move, and it came back to bite you in the G-spot. So there you go. That was not called for in this otherwise chill video up to this point. We're in the top 25, y'all. So I'm gonna, the video's just gonna keep going for you, but I'm gonna stop for a second and get some more tea, because I'm starting to struggle a little bit here, and this is getting so long. Number 25, Kazuma's Return. So where Dirk's reveal was that he was dead all along, Kazuma's reveal is that he was alive all along. This one was a pleasant surprise, albeit a bit unexpected. Up until this point, Kazuma's basically been like the Mia of the Great Ace Attorney series. He was your mentor, who died in Case 2, and in a pretty uneventful Case 2, to be honest. Case 2 in that game was basically all investigation, so it never really felt like you got total closure on it, and that's why Kazuma's death is not on here, but his return is, for the most part, because his return was a much bigger moment, in my opinion. Because his return was also accompanied by the fact that he didn't know who he was, and when he did find out, it was at one of the worst possible times that he could have found out. Because he found this out at the same time that he found out his dad was like this huge terrorist, or so he thought. You know, the professor and all that stuff. And so he has like this huge breakdown. And then there's like a bit of a reunion there, but it's kind of awkward because they've been building up to it. And you get that sense that like Susanoo recognized him even before the reveal. But when the reveal actually happens, it's more so Ryunosuke. Because Ryunosuke was like the best friend, so of course it's right away you're going to see it through his eyes. Has he pretty much seen the whole game through his point of view anyway. So it's all the sweeter though when he does come back to know, like, oh my god, it's my best friend, but what has happened all this time? You have all these questions, so many questions you want to know the answers to, and those answers will come over the course of time, but just knowing now that you'll be able to get those answers, and stuff is about to get super real. So number 24, Pearl gives you the Magatama. Actually, now that I think about it, I kind of misworded that. It's not Pearl that gives it to you, it's actually Maya. Pearl is the one that actually charges it up with a spiritual energy. And that, to me, was the true moment when you realize that, like, hey, there's something deep going on here. You know, and you've been seeing this girl running around all throughout Karine Village. And the fact that Karine Village is such a beautiful place, that doesn't hurt either. The pathway leading to the sideways room, or whatever it's called, the winding way, I would just sit there all day long with the Nintendo Switch in my hands and be happy for the rest of my life. But this moment right here sets something up that goes on for the rest of the series. Which, I know I'm making an argument as to why it's important, but is it one of the best moments? Well, to me it is. The music, when I heard that music for the first time, that's when I realized this was not just a game about being a lawyer. This was a game about finding the truth, and finding it in some very unconventional ways. Because the Magatama could tell you if somebody was lying to you. We already know that, we discussed that at length already. But the first time you use it, it's especially fascinating. It almost makes you feel a little awkward, and I think that's by design, because finding the truth is not always, as many other games will attest, a pleasant process, you know. But yeah, I felt like gaining that power was a real step up. I felt like I'd actually powered up as a character. I gained a new ability that I was going to be able to use, you know, a gameplay ability. And, you know, you don't talk about gameplay a lot with visual novels like this, but a gameplay ability that's actually interesting. I love that about this, and that's why I think I put it as high as I did. Number 23 is Proving Jeff Masters Innocent / Kate Cries. Jeff Masters is a pretty underrated character, actually. This entire case, well, the case itself is not underrated. Like, everybody loves this case. A lot of people say this case is even better than the finale. And Jeff Masters is just such a likable guy. And he has the whole theme song with Kate, and it's also wholesome and everything. And then, wonder of wonders, he gets accused of murder. And guess who's behind that? Oh man, let me tell you. But what makes it even worse is that not only is he accused of murder despite being innocent, he does over almost 2 decades of jail time for something that he didn't do. And all that time that he's in there, he's being interrogated. They imply torture. I don't know what they mean by that, and I'm not sure that I want to know. But all that time, you know, his friend, not his girlfriend, just his friend, Kate, is trying to get him out. trying to figure a way to do it, and eventually she finds a way, and that becomes like a whole thing that you slowly unravel over the course of this case. But at the end of the day, you're finally able to exonerate him and finish the job that your late father started, and it just feels really good to do, because you haven't really seen that up to this point. You haven't seen an innocent person actually do time, actually, endure punishment for something that they didn't do. And it's easy to forget, like, how tragic that is, that can happen. So getting him out, and then seeing Kate's reaction at the end, I say Kate cries in the name of the moment, because, like, her tears are so huge when she finally does break down, and it's just, like, everything is so good at the end of that. Like, obviously, she still has to do something for what she did, but just a tremendous amount of love that she felt for this guy, that she came in and visited him every day. Like, for that many years, that's a true commitment to someone right there. Especially for someone that's not like a boyfriend or something like that. But she actually just cared for this guy because she knew. And thank God for Edgeworth finally coming in to expose what she did, but also expose why she did it, and consequently get Jeff Masters off the hook. Number 22. Oh, wow, there is another Larry moment here. How about this? Okay. You're probably like, oh no, what's it gonna be? Number 22 is Larry sticking up for Phoenix in class. This is one of Larry's best moments, I think. I didn't mention it. The other moment with Pearl and the Cyclops. I meant to also mention that Larry, takes care of Pearl over that time, because Pearl, wasn't being fed or anything. Nobody knew where she was. And it turned out he was taking care of her and feeding her and stuff all that time. And him sticking up for Phoenix in class was kind of a linchpin moment for him and Larry, or him and Phoenix and Edgeworth, all three of them in general. Because even Edgeworth came up and stood up for him too eventually. And that's how the three of them became friends in the first place. And yeah, Larry, he's kind of fallen off over the years. But he's not a bad guy. And especially because he comes back and actually gives back the money. Because it turned out to be him, not Phoenix, that actually stole the money that Phoenix was being accused of stealing by the class. Maybe a little too late at that point. But still, at least he came clean. He's a bumbling idiot. But he's a lovable bumbling idiot. Number 21 is Francie at the airport at the end of JFA. JFA? Okay. Sure it's not JFK? That might be where... No, they were in Los Angeles. That'd be LAX. Anyway. Yeah, this moment, man. The first time I saw this moment, I kind of freaked out because the sprite is a little bit uncanny valley. I don't know if that's the word I need to use here, but when you see it the second time and you already know it's coming, it's easier to really hone in on the dialogue and what's being said there. And that's the really important part. To me, her line about him abandoning her, him running off ahead of her. Just when I was a kid, there was a lot of things that other kids could do that I couldn't. Look people in the eyes, or run indefinitely, or jump into the deep end of a swimming pool. I mean, I told these stories already, so no need to rehash them here. But these are all legit things that happen to me. So when she talks about this thing about you've run on ahead without me, and how hurt she is by that, it's I felt for her in that moment. That's why this is as high as it is. It is a poignant moment regardless of who you are, but it was especially so for me because of that. So I found her pretty relatable because of that, and especially given how mostly unlikable she was for the rest of that game. For her to come around, bring in that evidence and save the day, and then this on top of that, it really cemented Justice for All in my top 5 at least. I mean, this moment really runs deeper than I'm making it sound here, to make it all about myself or something, but honestly, the idea that these two could be so different and yet so the same, because they're both trying to carve their own path away from how they were taught, by Von Karma. But I can't help but feel like Francie kind of has the heavier burden here, because Von Karma is her father, and she doesn't exactly have the luxury of being able to, to say, well, no, I'm not going to follow in my mentor's footsteps. I'm going to follow in my father's instead, which is kind of, Edgeworth could do that, but Francie, not so much. Okay, alright, well, top 20, here we go, let's see. Number 20, cornering Gatto, cornered from first game plays. You just have to play it for yourself, and if you have the nostalgia from the first game, and you know that song really well, and you remember how important it is when that song plays, how important for you personally it is, it's you're finally coming full circle and winning for the last time that you're going to need to for a while. You know, in retrospect, looking back, it's even more poignant considering where Phoenix ends up. But for the moment, it's a sweet victory, and you just can't deny that. Number 19 is Maya reuniting with Phoenix and Pearl at the end of Justice for All. All of a sudden, Justice for All taking over here, man, let me tell you. Every time I watch people play Justice for All blind for the first time and they don't know it's coming, I always look forward to them seeing this picture. Because, good lord, what a sweet picture it is. It's like, I need not embellish how much Phoenix cares for Maya to begin with. I mean, you could tell he cared for her and he was worried about her all through that case, and how he was reacting to things that were happening. But you finally get that relief at the end when you realize she's been let go, and then doubly so when you actually see her for the first time. She calls out your name and just runs in, and everybody hugs each other, and it's just so good, man. It's so good. It's such a good moment. And that's all there is to it, really. So, okay, number 18. Apollo and Dirk in Cave. Does this count even as a different moment? Well, I mean, it does. It's different than Dirk is Dead. I did talk about this a little bit in the Dirk is Dead entry, which was number 27, by the way. This is another one of those Spirit of Justice moments that I just love because of how vastly different it is than anything else we've seen up to this point. Everything else has always been, you know, there's investigations, they've taken us to some cool places. Yeah, we went to places like Gourd Lake, the Berryvik Circus, the Lordly Taylor. You go to the big space station, you go to Trucy's magic show, you go to the Gaviners concert. There's just so many cool places. And then all of a sudden, you have this remote, out-of-the-way place where you're not surrounded by people, and it's just you and your dad in this cave. This is also like one of those where it's not really a moment, because it spans across several moments, that, especially with what's after it. There's also a little bit of urgency to it because you feel like your life is in danger. It felt like a point-and-click adventure, where this wasn't about law anymore. It wasn't about the courtroom or the judge or evidence or presenting shit. Or it was like a little vacation, a little mini vacation in a very ugly place, but still. And I need not tell you that everything that comes after that, the next half hour, is just pure storytelling gold. You find out that Dirk saved his life when he was a kid, and how that's why he's afraid of the water. Interesting fact, thalassophobia is the fear of deep water. Thalassa is Apollo's mother's name. Weird coincidence there. Number 17, Justine turns on Blaze. Thank God, man. All through this investigations, too. Justine is just being a total control freak on you. Always throwing the goddess of law in your face. You know, the goddess of law overruled. And just all this crap. And it's just like, God damn it, shut up. And she's bringing that Nimrod with her. This is that absolute Nimrod. But no, like, all this time, you know, and you're just like, when is this ever going to stop? When are they ever going to have their arc? All they're doing is being annoying for the first 3.5 cases. And finally, in this case 4, you know, you have this weird moment where she comes and visits you in the jail. Because you're in jail for some reason, I forget. And she talks to you about something, and you're like, what is going on here? What is her angle? You know, it's one of those situations. You see it in movies all the time. Like, I can't tell you this because if I did, if you knew this going in, then you wouldn't be able to, you know, honestly get to the point that I'm trying to help you get at here. You get back to Blaze the Best. He starts ranting on about his son and how stupid he is, and just out of the blue, and she slams that thing. And she says, I indict you, Blaze the Best. And it's just like, God damn, yes. Having her on your side just feels so powerful. And once again, I say, it's a lucky thing Blaze turned out to be a killer, and who knows when she found that out, or if she found that out, or knew it all along. We're at top 16 here, holy crap. Number 16 is Ray's Confession. We're starting to see a lot of investigations too here, aren't we? Ray's Confession investigations too. It's the end of case 2-3. Again, a little bit close to the whole exonerating Jeff Masters, I know. These probably could have just both been one moment, really. But, you know, at this point, I've gotten this far in, I'm kind of attached to the way it is here. So Ray took a snapshot of himself with Gregory, And you were there for that because the game took you back to 18 years ago. He does the same thing with Edgeworth, Gregory's son. Now, unfortunately, obviously Gregory's dead now, so all he has left is the picture. But he sets the two pictures side by side, and then he takes his hat off and he stands there and he makes a little speech, and it's just a moment. It's just one of those moments when you think, God, this is so good. It's like, why didn't they make a movie about this? Why didn't they bring this game to the United States? At this point in time, I think, is when Edgeworth is his closest to becoming a defense attorney like his dad. Because, eventually he does decide, no, I'm going to be a prosecutor. He does decide that. But in this moment, at this particular time, yeah, the defense thing is on his mind. Number 15, Humble Pie. So, I've already talked about Mimi Miney a little bit. Like, she's a fascinating character to me. The idea of becoming another person, of being another person, of living that person's life, driving that person's car, doing everything that person does, talking to that person's friends, if they have any. The thing of it is, though, the way that you see her, you think at that point that she's the other sister. You think she's this total ditz, this total airhead, and she's just like totally all the time talking like I can't even believe how much of a total. And this is after, I don't know, like 3 hours of this, all of a sudden. I mean, you've seen it a little bit leading to that point. Sometimes she would flip out a little bit and you'd be like, what's that all about? And it's like, sure, she probably has a secret, but like, how bad could it be? This girl's not smart enough to commit a crime. She's just some weird-ass girl who's hanging out in here, some random side character or something. Then, even still in this form, before you know the truth, she says, I'm going to serve you a slice of humble pie. And you're just like, what? What did you just say? So even airheads can still get frightened, or freak out a little bit, or flip out like, oh no, he's going to find out my diary, he's going to see my Facebook, or something like that. But I'm going to give you a slice of humble pie is just not something that an airhead would say. And so I think it's in that moment when you start to realize that there's something going on with this girl, and I ain't seen it yet. Number 14 is Mikitoba's Dance of Deduction, and holy hell, I remember the first time I saw this, my immediate response was, this is the greatest game ever made. Obviously, I don't think that now, but in the moment when he was doing that, I was just like, holy crap. Because you just don't see stuff like this these days. You don't see tap dancing. Maybe you see it on like one of those Got Talent shows or something like that. Sometimes you still see it there. But you don't see it in like the traditional sense of somebody and it just seeming like something that they would just do every day. I just thought it was really fascinating because they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to go that far. I thought I might have more to say about this one, but I guess that's really all there is to it. I don't know. So I guess on to number 13 then. Number 13, this one's going to be a little weird. Yanni Yogi Stands Up Straight. I sound like a broken record here, but you've spent how many hours following this guy around, listening to him talk about how he's going to open up his own pasta shop and you're going to be the person who takes over when he keels over or whatever. He can barely keep his balance. He's blowing bubbles, falling asleep in the middle of his sentences. It reminds me of myself when I had that hypothyroid, actually. So I can relate to that more than ever now. And so he's on the stand, he's trying to testify that you're having more luck with the freaking parrot than you are him. And it just out of the blue, I did not see this coming, and it shocked the crap out of me. It almost scared me, actually. And maybe that's why this is so high. I couldn't put a pin on it, but man, all of a sudden, he just stood up straight. And he looks deadpan into the camera. And it's like you could tell, just from his demeanor right then and there, that he was not who you thought he was. And so if that was true, then how much of what he was saying was also not true. That moment just really hit me because the older I get, the more I sympathize with old people. And when I saw him like that, I kind of felt bad for him. I felt like, man, this guy's only got a little bit of time left here. And he's barely going to be aware of the time he does have. And then he stood up straight, and it's like, all of a sudden, he de-aged 15 years. all of a sudden, he was conscious. All of a sudden, he knew what was going on. All of a sudden, there was a person there that wasn't there before. It's one of the best character transformations, I think, in the entire series. He's not that interesting of a character aside from that, which is unfortunate. But that moment, though, I love it. So there you go. Number 12, Kristoff Black Cyclops. This one's important because this was actually the first time that you saw them. And more importantly, you never get to break these. You never do. He goes to the end believing that he was right about whatever it is he believes, which in this case would be that he was a more competent lawyer than Phoenix Wright was. And that might be true for all we know. Like, he must have gotten to where he is somehow. I mean, it turns out that what he did for a very petty reason. He basically lost the hand of poker, and because of losing that hand, the person he was playing against decided not to hire him. I mean, that is a pretty weird reason to say you can't be my lawyer because you lost a game of poker. But then again, part of being a lawyer, I guess, is probably being able to have a good poker face. So maybe, I don't know, I don't really know anything about that, so. Number 11, let's see who got yeeted out of the top 10 here. Phoenix reveals he's your opponent in 6-5. Again with the whole Spirit of Justice thing. I feel bad for Dual Destinies, because I feel like that's the most underrepresented game here. But, to be honest, I don't know. The more I think about it, the more I realize that Dual Destinies, I don't know how much I really... Like, it was a good game, but even the worst Phoenix Wright game is better than the best. So I'm not going to finish that sentence. So in Spirit of Justice, you meet this weird-ass politician dude, and he's all like, well, that's mine because it's the Crystal Vomit Fae, and you're saying, no, it's mine because it's the whatever the other name for it was, the Mystic Orb or something. And Phoenix comes up and he's like, oh, hey. And he drops this bombshell on you that he is representing the politician guy. And now you, Apollo Justice, have to go up against Phoenix in court. So Phoenix gets to be on the prosecutor's bench, and you are on the defense bench. And seeing him over there is such a weird whiplash, because all throughout the entire game, we've seen Edgeworth switch sides. We've seen Franzi switch sides. We've seen Justine Courtney switch sides. We've never seen Phoenix switch sides. This is the guy whose name is in the title of the game. So seeing him switch sides, like, that's a big deal. That's the biggest deal that ever dealed to deal. And when you first find out that he's doing that he's going up against you, it's a moment. It turns out that the reason he's doing that is because Maya got captured and he's being blackmailed into it, which is the same thing that happened in 2-4. Why they did it again, I have no idea. And that was really actually pretty disappointing to find out when you find that out, because it has no potency that turns out to have very little to do with the rest of the case. But I still think that in that moment, when he actually does reveal that he's going up against you, that is still a powerful moment, because it makes you think. It's a powerful moment for the same reason that Case 4-1 is powerful, because it sets up something really good. Sure, there's not much of a payoff to it, but when it sets it up good. It gets you really riled up. And that's what it did for me. When I found that out, I felt sick. I think I even said that in my playthrough. It was just like, I could not believe it was happening. So that's that. Let's get to the top 10 already. Number 10. Okay, so I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite here by using this one, because I did say at the very beginning of this that I didn't want to use running gags as moments. But this one was just too good. Number 10 is Brock's leg. Brock's fucking leg, okay? Alright, we're bringing out the Precision F-Strike here for this one. I don't know who decided, who came up with that. I can't even think of a word for this, for what this is. I saw a GIF of it a long time ago before I ever played this game, and I didn't know who it was. I assumed, when I saw the GIF, that it was just some person who, took Edgeworth and, photoshopped him and did a really, quick little animation of him just doing some crazy thing. So when I saw it in the game, it was pretty good, but I kind of wished I hadn't been spoiled on that, because then I would have just I would have screamed so loud I probably would have damaged my throat. So I started calling it the Edgeworth kick, and when Joker in Persona 5 would kick out a lock, I'd be like, oh, haha, he's doing the Edgeworth kick. This thing became somewhat of a part of my life, even though it was just a gift. Okay, so, number 9. Oh, we're getting such good ones here. Edgeworth gives Kay her book back. I love this moment, and here we go again, Investigations 2. Oh god, why is there so much Investigations 2 on here? Oh, I'm gonna lose my mind. This moment is so sweet. Like we haven't already seen enough proof of it, but man, he really does have a great deal of respect for her. And she him as well. But getting that book back out of evidence for her, and giving it back to her because it meant so much to her, because it was like her book that she made with her dad, her promise book. I actually have a person who made one for me, and I still have it with me, actually. But just the moment when he hands it to her and they show the picture, and he's almost smiling, but not quite, because Edgeworth doesn't really do that, but it's just another one of those moments. It's like Trucy sleeping on him on the plane, and it just makes me happy, you know? It makes me happy for him that he got to do that. It makes me happy for her that she got her book back. It was such a win-win for both of them, and the moment is so good. So, number 8. Number 8, using the metal detector on Manfred von Karma. Dude, seriously. That dude has been harassing you, following you around, tasing you. This is supposed to be a chill video, but god damn, dude, that dude does so much crap. And this is just one trial. The guy's been doing this for 40 years. Can you imagine how much pain this guy has caused after just what little bit he's managed to do in just this one trial? How much he's managed to do, I mean. But he's just funny enough that you could almost not forgive it, but overlook it a little bit, because you don't actually have to see it, even though you do see some of it. And he does kill Gregory, the butthead. But still, using that metal detector to point out the bullet in his arm, which proves, because the bullet would match the gun, that he was there at the scene all those years ago. Finally getting Edgeworth the release that he deserves from having to think that he had killed his father. How would you function if you thought that you had killed your own father? And yet, the fact that he has managed to somehow pull through all this to this point, but then to be able to relieve him of that burden, to be able to prove to him that no, it's both happy and sad at the same time. Because the sad part is to think of all the time he wasted feeling whatever he could have possibly felt, which I don't even want to imagine. It's a great moment, and I'm all too happy to see it over and over again. Number 7, Terry Fall's death / Armando crushing his cup. This entire case is, well, to be honest, the case itself, maybe not the best case in the series, not the most interesting. So the entire case is basically about Dahlia again. It's like she comes back more often than Junko Inoshima, apparently. I mean, she's basically a culprit in like 3 out of 5 cases in Trials and Tribulations, which is part of the reason why I don't think Trials and Tribulations is my number 1. It's either Spirit of Justice or Investigations 2. Even so, the moment you get to the end of this case, this guy, Terry Falls, she's got him so tightly wrapped around her finger. Love makes you do some messed up stuff. And even calling this love is weird, because the guy's 20, he looks like he's 40, and she's 14. And that is a big part of why this moment is not even higher than it is. It's a number 7 now. But that moment when he takes the poison just as a means of keeping his promise to her, it's both selfless and stupid and one of the most shocking things that happens in the entire series. When I saw that shot of the entire courtroom and him on the witness stand on his knees, dying in that very moment, it's impossible to get that vision out of your head once you've seen it. He does this on screen, and you could see him coughing up the blood and everything, and it's nothing short of disturbing disturbing to the highest degree. The other thing that's really tough about this is that you know that it's coming. Well, you know something is coming. And you know that because this is Mia's first case, and this is Edgeworth's first case. And you also know, at this point, because of case 3-1, that something traumatic happened in Mia's first case that made her not want to ever do this again. You also know that, number 2, this is Edgeworth's first case, and number 3, that Edgeworth has never lost a case. So the question becomes, what the hell happens at the end of this case? And you're just waiting for it, and then you see it, and then it's just like, ugh. I think I've talked about it for long enough, honestly. Really, I'm kind of going off the deep end here, but furthermore, it's after the moment is over, and you see Diego Armando, and he gives Mia that famous line, the one that she reiterates to Phoenix in the present, about you can't cry until it's all over. And then he crushes the cup in his hand, and the blood just spews out of his hand. It's a neat little parallel to when he actually cries himself at the end of 3-5, because the blood comes out then too. And both times, it's the color that he can't see. You could just about write a whole literary analysis just on that alone. But, I'm not going to get into that right now. I think I've said enough as it is. But that's a moment that you will not forget when you play the game. I definitely won't. So, okay, number 6. Number 6 is Dahlia's breakdown. It had to be somewhere in the top 10. There's no way that this is not one of the best moments in the entire series. Everything that you've been doing, basically for all 3 games, has kind of been building up to this. You know that Phoenix has a tortured past. They don't really delve into it that much until the 3rd game. You know that there's some drama with the Faye family. Justice for All kind of starts to set that up. There's so many things that come together so well. At some point in the middle of this case, you find out Dahlia is dead. She served her sentence about a month ago. So because of that, now she's available to be channeled, which makes her even more dangerous than she was when she was alive. So I would put this higher if not for the fact that all it really takes is words to make her go away. She seems threatening, but at the end of the day, all it takes is for Mia to tell her that she failed at what she did, and that's all she'll ever be is a failure. And even that takes some rationalization to get to that point, but it makes her go away, which is not something that was ever established was a thing. Like, I thought if you were dead, you could just be channeled indefinitely as many times as you wanted. Because usually what they do is, like, if a spirit has unfinished business, but then that begs the question of, well, at what point is Mia's business going to be finished? Like, who really decides that? I don't know. I guess it's better if you just don't think about it too much. But yeah, Dahlia's breakdown's number 6. Part of me only put that as high as it did because I knew I'd catch hell if I didn't at least top 10 that shit. But it is arguably the most important moment of the trilogy because it's what you've been building up to across 3 frickin' games. Number 5 is the parrot. What I was doing when I was rearranging all of these, trying to figure out what order to put them in, I consistently found myself moving the funny moments down and moving the serious moments up. The Iris Faye confessing feelings to Phoenix, that one was originally in the 90s, in the bottom 10. I ended up moving it all the way up to 32. I moved it like 4 different times. Number 5 is the parrot. I mean, you know what happens there. You know why it's funny. You know that if you've heard my reaction, then I'm sorry about that. And it is one of the funniest and most important moments in the series, though, because the parrot has information about DL6, which DL6 is at the center of a lot of things, and that bleeds over into the investigations games too. It cannot be overstated how important this moment is. But aside from that, I don't really think there's that much else to say about it, so I'm just going to jump to number 4 here. Number 4, oh boy. Oh my god. There's one of these top 4, you're never going to guess what it is. Number 4 is Athena trying to repair her mom. I was going to say, surely I didn't short shrift Dual Destinies that much, did I? Oh, thank god. Yeah, this moment here is basically the reason that Dual Destinies was rated M instead of T like all the others. Because this moment is freaking dark. Basically, on the build-up to it, you find out that Athena is somehow involved in this whole big murder. Her prints are on the weapon, and how they got there, I don't even really remember. But what I do remember, and that's why this moment is so poignant and important, it's poignant, it's just this thing, because Athena grew up on the space station. So, in some ways, she's kind of like Pearl. She doesn't really know how the outside world works yet, and she works with robots all day long, and the robots can be repaired if they get somehow damaged or otherwise non-functional. And at some point, Athena's mom gets... Oof. How do I word this and make it not sound completely fucked up? Basically, she tries to repair her mom the same way that she tries to repair the robots. And that's how she ends up getting her fingerprints on the evidence. That's how she ends up getting accused of the crime. But to just think, you know, to have those good intentions, and then not only for that not to work, but that's why Athena has the black Cyclops that we talked about earlier. And that's why it's so difficult for something like that you can't just rip that off. You can't just go up to her and say, hey, guess what? You know, you did this. This is why this happened, because you tried to repair her, and it's not an easy pill to swallow. I guess one other reason why I'm not crazy about Dual Destinies is just because it really does push Athena and Apollo to the side. And part of that is because of Trucy, which is why I haven't brought her up that much in this thing. It's not that I don't like Trucy, I love her. But if I were making a top 10 list of Phoenix Wright characters, I don't think Trucy would be on it, to be honest. I don't feel like I'd relate to her as much as some of the others. So, that's, I don't know, I guess that's probably just me, but she's not unlikable, there's nothing wrong with her at all. I'm actually having second thoughts right now about the order of 1, 2, 3 here, but I'm just going to go with what I have, because number 1 is the reason I made this list in the first place. I'm going to leave it where it is. Number 3 is the Matt Engarde reveal. Matt Engarde from Case 2-4. This moment, this is one of those moments that is just so off the wall, so unbelievably crazy, that the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't even remember what I thought, because I kind of wasn't shocked. It was so much better the second time for me, is what I'm saying. And I totally get now why people like it. Because at first I was kind of like, oh, okay, so he was bad. Whoop-de-doo, who didn't see that coming? Because I don't know why, but I always felt like, as I was playing through the games, and this is more of just a meta thing, that I felt like, oh, eventually we're going to have somebody who we know is guilty. And when we got to Matt Engarde, I was like, oh shit, this is going to be it, isn't it? And so then when it happened, I was like, oh, yeah, I knew it. Yeah, one of the hardest things about this moment, aside from knowing now, just having it confirmed, you know, for Phoenix, you know, as a character, it's a moment for him to really be shocked and to say, oh my god, like, I actually am defending a guilty man here. You know, because up until this point in the game, the win condition was always pretty clear. The win condition was get a not guilty verdict. And that's just all there was to it. And one of the reasons why Edgeworth went away, and why he wanted nothing to do with Phoenix, is because Phoenix taught him how to rethink his ways, taught Edgeworth how to rethink his ways, that Phoenix needed to have his moment too, where he realized that it wasn't all about him, that it wasn't all about his side, that he wasn't always going to be the righteous one in every situation just because he was saving people while the other guy was just putting them away, potentially putting away innocent people, which indeed is a bad thing. But being on the defending side didn't necessarily make you a saint. So, and I think this was definitely, overall 2-4 was definitely Edgeworth's case. It's the one case you actually, I mean, if you don't count investigations, then it's the one case you actually get to see Edgeworth win. And you're actually glad that he wins. But back to the reveal, I should be talking about the actual moment here. No, this is the reveal though. This is the moment when Phoenix realizes his win condition has changed, and that everything he's been doing up to this point is not going to help him in the same way it did before. You know, like, you can practice Tetris for 20 hours a day. It's not going to help you in a Street Fighter tournament, you know what I mean? And Matt Ongarth's reveal is like, hey, buddy, you're in a Street Fighter tournament now. So you better just buck up, because you're about to get your butt handed to you. And the worst part of all of it is that Pearl is in the room seeing this happen. She's seeing everything. I mean, she handles it pretty freaking well, all things considered. But yeah, I mean, he talks down to her, he calls her little girl, but she doesn't back down against him either, man. She's like, you are a bad person, and damn right she's right. You know, people use the expression game changer pretty liberally nowadays, but like, this moment is a game changer. That's basically all there is to it. Which brings us to number 2. This is another one of those that's going to be a little controversial. I'm sorry I keep saying the number and then sitting there and talking about it for like a minute before I reveal what it is. I'll go ahead and tell you right now. Number 2 is Trucy's breakdown in case 6-2. Again, with the spirit of justice here, oh my god, I know. I just said like 2 entries ago that I didn't relate to Trucy, and I couldn't help but think to myself, oh, the irony, but this is the Trucy moment. This is the moment. This is Trucy's case. A lot of what she did in Dual Destinies involves getting Athena and Apollo, roping them into practicing for her magic show and stuff like that. And I kind of didn't like that much. So I was really happy to see an honest-to-God Trucy case where we got to see one of her magic shows, see what she was all about, see what the family situation was with her. Now Trucy's been tried for a crime. And what else is new? Maya's been tried for a crime, Phoenix has been tried for a crime, Athena's been tried for a crime. It was only a matter of time before they got to Trucy. But to me, Trucy is like, well, I mean, I don't think I need to complicate it. She was one of the most relatable. And the main reason for that is because of this moment when you talk to her in the detention center. She starts out fine. She's got the usual smile on her face, and she's telling you all about her magic trick and everything. But obviously the evidence is stacked heavily against her. And the more you start to bring this up and ask her, well, why did this happen? You know, what's going on here? The more she starts to realize that it really does look like she did something. And even if she did it unintentionally, she still might have killed a man. And as that realization dawns on her, something happens to her eyes. And it is like so subtle that you might not even notice it. But she still has the same smile, but her eyelids have come down by 1 mere pixel. And it makes all the difference in the world when you look at her face. She looks like she has aged 5 years, just within a minute. That moment, I find relatable. And again, here I'm trying not to talk too much about myself on this and everything, but ever since I was a kid, this is gonna sound really dumb, I've done this thing when I'm around other people where I turn the corners of my mouth up. I probably don't do it as much, now that I'm older, but when I was a kid, I was constantly like that. And the reason I did that was because I didn't want people to think that I was unhappy with them. I didn't want them to think that, because I didn't want them to ask me what was wrong. I didn't want them to think that I was mad at them for some reason, because I was so paranoid about someone being mad at me for something. I just didn't want anyone to remotely even think that they had a reason to feel uncomfortable around me. And if I could keep, forcing that semi-smile or whatever, I could at least make them more comfortable. It was almost like conditioning, learning through repetition. It became a habit at a point I didn't even realize I was doing it. And it's weird because there's like this really effed up character in Zero Time Dilemma that does that his story is about that. And so in that manner, I kind of relate to him too, even though I don't kill people like he does. Spoilers. But that's why I say that I can relate to Trucy in this scene finally. For the first time, I can relate to her. because that's what she's doing. She doesn't want Apollo to worry about her. She doesn't want Apollo to think she's mad at him for asking these questions. She doesn't want Apollo to think that his pursuit of the truth is hurting her in any way. But when she looks at you with that face, it is like simultaneously one of the most upsetting and yet beautiful things that I've ever seen in any of these games. Because she's growing up, you know, that's all it is. She's growing up, she's finding out, you know, that this can happen to the world, that it's all real, and that there's troubling things that happen in the world, and that she's not mentally invincible, that she's not emotionally invincible. You just see her trying so hard to hold all those emotions in, but eventually the dam breaks, and she cries. And, this is the kind of moment where people would say something like, well, if you don't get tears in your eyes, you must not be human. But trust me, I know what it's like to kill your emotions, and on a second viewing, when I wasn't recording, you know, in front of an audience and all, yeah, I may have cried a little bit then, yeah. This moment is number 2 for me because it took a character that I basically didn't really care that much about and just made her into something real, something genuine, something that my heart just went out to her. It solidified her as a part of the family. And I think that just about brings us to number 1 here. And I'm just gonna cut the foreplay and get right to it. Number 1 is Mia's Psyche-Locks in Case 2-2. That's it. We've ripped the band-aid off. Now, let's talk about it, I guess? Or you can just click off the video because, you're disappointed. I wouldn't blame you if you were. But, Mia's Psyche-Locks is the reason I made this list. And I guess this kind of goes along with the moment of, well, Pearl charges up your Magatama, which that was, what? That was number 24. So once you get the Magatama, it's like I said, it's such a huge deal because you feel like you've gained a skill, a gameplay skill that you can actually use. So, you know, it gives you the skill, you go around, you use it on Mamma Mia, whatever her name is, Eenie Meenie. But, you know, you gather what information you can, and it looks really bad because it always does after the first day. You go back to Mia, and you just sit down and talk to her about what you learned, about the truths that you learned, and you get a little bit of advice from Mia about how, you know, mediums don't have dreams and stuff like that. That's a really good clue, actually, that she gives you there. Yeah, so you have this new skill, and you're just playing around with it, and you think you're done with it. You think, okay, it's time to go to trial now. And then at the last second, they pull the rug out from under your feet. The person who was like your best friend up until her untimely death, the person who taught you everything that you know, the person who you admired the most in your life, the person who had so much to live for, and now suddenly, she is lying to you. And you wonder to yourself, what could she possibly have to hide from me? The Psyche-Locks were already an interesting concept even before that point. The music was cool, the entire, like, what you do with them is cool, the sound of the chains and everything, the locks popping up, and the number of locks being, like, representative of how intense the lie was, or how intensely they wanted to hide it. And then you get to her, and for the first time, you see 3 locks, whereas you've only ever seen 1 at a time before, maybe 2 with Pearl, I forget. But now you see 3, and you're like, this is for real. When you see Psyche-Locks on a person, the person who's lying is not aware that you can see them. But in Mia's case, she is aware. So that makes it a little bit different for her. So when Phoenix tells her, I'm gonna find out the truth right now, Mia's like, I welcome you to try. She just totally taunts you. And I freaking love her for that. In fact, I would almost say that, you know, when she says I welcome you to try, that's just about as good of a moment as this is. Those 2 moments put together, that's number 1. Not just the appearance of the Psyche-Locks, but her, like, spurring you on when you go in to actually take them out. And that right there is the top 100 moments. Gosh, I hate that we're at the end of this already. Lord. Didn't think I was gonna... I honestly didn't think this was gonna take this long. It's taken me about 3 hours, but there's been a lot of throat clearing. There's been a lot of stopping to think about what I'm saying. There's been a lot of stopping to take breaks, and Yeah, so I don't know how long this is going to be at the end of it, but if you stuck around for this long, I really do appreciate it. Thanks again for hanging out with me. Maybe I'll do another one of these sometime. If you have any other ideas or suggestions for top 100 lists, I'd be glad to consider them. Like maybe top 100 Danganronpa moments or something. It'd be pretty interesting. Well, that's only 3 games though, but those are a lot more long-winded than Phoenix Wright is, so maybe do them all separately. What the heck? Is that seriously how long that was? Just the top 25 is an hour and 44 minutes. Ooh, this is gonna be good, man. This is gonna be good. Alright, well, I'll see what I can do with this. See you guys later. Goodbye.